Aloha, it's Dave Lawrence. How are you? Big mahalo for tuning in. I hope that you're doing well. Today we're going to hear about an unusual tour that happens to be kicking off in Honolulu. It'll be on September 6th, Hawaiian Brian's, and it's called Capitalism, spoken word event. It's a guy who has, fortunately, he's been our guest before. He's going to take it from there and then travel to all 50 states. It'll be in each state capital. Tour ends on the eve of the election in Washington, D.C., a city of significance for our guest. We'll hear about the capitalism, quest for truth, if you will, and more as we welcome back music pioneer, writer, blogger, fellow radio DJ and public radio cat. He's an actor. He's a very gifted jack of many trades. You could think of him as Henry Rollins. Aloha and mahalo, Brother Henry. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, no problem, man. No problem at all.
Good to be talking to you again. And we're very fortunate, huh? We kind of, it worked out that in the run of dates for this thing, we're the first.
Yeah, well, we wanted to do Hawaii and Alaska first, just because geographically they'll be the two most challenging destinations. And so, because they need to be accessed by airplane, for us at least. And so Hawaii is the first date of this tour.
Yeah, that makes sense, because otherwise it would be, you could do the first state, you would have been in Delaware, I guess, if you did it by which state signed up to be.
That would have been very interesting. That would have been an interesting way to approach it. But some of these cities, they don't really have venues in them. And so the tour, it began as an idea of my agent. Well over a year ago, he pitched it to me. I said, that's a great idea. And then when the rubber met the road and he actually started trying to book it, you find that some of the states are somewhat problematic, and in that there's just no venues. So some of these shows are going to happen in like high school auditoriums, and so getting a venue in a capital city was a challenge. To have done it in any kind of order, that would have been fairly impossible. I mean, it's as it is. We have to bring two drivers for the bus, because there's just going to be some pretty brutal drives, and there'll be at least 8 fly-out dates because of just the sheer geographic challenges.
Yeah, I mean, just doing what you're doing is enough, and it's great to be embarking on something like that with meaning. And a lot of different bands and artists, entertainers, if you will, have done interesting and memorable geographic swings through the country, but this one also leads into the election, and it's not your first stab at doing something like this. You mentioned your agent inspired the project. I see the poster with the Uncle Sam and the broken dollar symbol. Where are you coming at? Is it a monologue that's going to be similar each night, or are you kind of winging it? Describe the evening.
I never wing it. No, I wouldn't put an audience through that. No, a lot of preparation goes into what I do on stage. I don't, and that kind of spontaneity, it might be good for some people. It just wouldn't work for me. So I work very hard at being very prepared. So when I go on stage, it doesn't go sideways. That's my fear, that it would, that I would ramble.
Yeah, I know, it makes sense. So it's a series of topics that you've pre-planned, and basically anyone who sees the show is going to see almost a carbon copy because you've worked out a routine.
No, I mean, it's not like I'm pulling a string out of my chest. It's just that it's like a band tour where you have your new songs, new material, and you kind of explore them every night. And a lot of what I do on stage is basically storytelling. I go here, I go there, and I come back with this story, like a big fish that I wrenched out of the water. And so I'll tell those stories, but there's different ways to approach all that every night. I mean, it's not like you're diverting the truth in any way, but there are ways of basically getting at it from different angles. And so things tend to change every night. Like if you listen to 5 shows of John Coltrane in 1965, the set might not vary all that much, but the solos in those tunes would sometimes go all over the place differently, but still the same tune.
Great analogy. Well, there's a whole lot of improv, and that's what you're the kind of cat who has so much to say. You're a very opinionated dude. You're charged up. If you read on your website, with the Dispatch at least, you can follow along the kind of detail that you put into your approach to politics and current issues. I was looking at the press release that Mike sent over about it from your office, and it looks like a lot of the travel that you do will factor into this. How much have your experiences as you've gone around the world sort of helped to redefine your views of American culture and also yourself?
Well, it's one of the best ways to assess America is to look at it from afar and to evaluate it by how it washes up on other shores, to where you really see, basically, it gives the lie to Thomas Friedman's utopian view of globalization. And so when you see what the America looks like in Cambodia, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Honduras, in Central Asian countries, in Southeast Asian countries, in the Middle East, it doesn't make you say, "Oh, America's bad." Not at all. It's just that it lets you understand the kind of powerhouse it is, and the influential force in the world that it is. It's a lot of, America really does dictate how a lot of the world comports itself. For, not always for good, because there's going to be good and bad in any situation or scenario. And I never really understood that until I left America, got outside of America, and got outside of the normal places I would go, Europe, and getting into the African continent, or going to the Middle East, or going all over Southeast Asia, like into Burma, into Vietnam, Cambodia, places like Laos. You see a different America, and you get a different sense of things. Like going into places like Israel and Egypt are very, very informative.
What was your last big trip?
Last year, I was all over the world. I was in Uganda, Southern Sudan. I was in Haiti, Cuba, Mali, Senegal, and next year, and also Vietnam, India, doing a lot of documentary work, a lot of travel, just stuff on my own, a lot of photography. And so that was the last, big, chunk of travel. This year I'm traveling a lot, for shows, but it's not to places like I just mentioned, in that a lot of those locations is really not a stage to be on. I was just in South Africa a few weeks ago. That was interesting. I go there every tour now for shows.
The more heavy-duty exotic dates that you were mentioning from last year, those were not strung together in one trip. Those were a series of different adventures?
Yeah. I was in Vietnam and India working with National Geographic on 3 documentaries we shot. The trips to Africa, I just, go on my own. Haiti and Cuba, I just went by myself. I went to Haiti to see what repair looked like after the earthquake, and I went there with, basically a lot of American dollars, and made cash contributions to different orphanages, and bought a lot of soap and soccer balls, and drove them into tent cities all over the Port-au-Prince area, and basically, made in-person contributions to all these tent cities for a week.
Were you alone in your travels?
Yeah, I went there, and I met up with a guy who is American of Haitian descent, who kind of knows the lay of the land. And from there, I found a guy with a car named Jimmy who spoke English. And every day, Jimmy and I would just drive to different places. But primarily, I was there kind of on my own, improvising it.
And how long of a trip?
I'm sorry?
How long were you in Haiti?
I was there for about a week. It's all the time I had. I had to go back on the road with Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah, no, you're a busy cat. We just had Steel Pulse through, and David Hines was talking about his trip to Haiti in some detail. It was fascinating to hear. And the ones, Henry, when you think of some of these names, I see that there's a professional aspect too, because you're very fortunate. People ask you to, you get involved, however it happens. You get these really interesting gigs, or you're working like National Geographic, like you said. But when it comes to the ones that aren't attached to a specific gig, and you explain why Haiti, but some of these ones in Africa that weren't attached necessarily to a gig, what was it that prompted you to choose that as a destination? And then,
I just am curious, and I have the means, so I go. Uganda and Sudan, where I was in 2010, I work with an organization in California called Drop in the Bucket. Dropinthebucket.org is their site. And they drill for water in those 2 countries. And I've been a fundraiser and a cheerleader, for them for years. And at one point they said, the way to really get what we do is, come to Africa with us and see it. And I said, you don't have to ask me twice. I'm always, happy to go to Africa. I go, 1 to 3 times a year. And so I went to Uganda and Sudan. I'll probably be back there in February of next year.
That's cool. That's you've done a lot of destinations I can see in your passport when it comes to that continent.
Yeah, I mean, Africa is, I mean, you're never going to get to the bottom of it. I mean, you could spend your whole life studying one country, and it would still be an evolving mystery. I mean, Africa makes you, well, the trips I've made, I don't know how many there's been now, 13 or so, it makes you reconsider everything from food, water, life, death, humanity, morality. It just challenges you on every level, or at least it has for me. I think the only way to get in and out of an African country and not be moved is to be, either just lock yourself in a hotel room or to be a total sociopath. Otherwise, it is very impactful. I mean, you see people living in, with great uncertainty as a guarantee, living with food uncertainty and basic life instability, where they're living on the kind of the edges of existence as far as food, water, war, tribal turbulence, global warming, globalization. All these things impact peoples in Africa like so hugely. And you, the traveler, you get to walk through it. I mean, this is their lives. You look at it for a few days, go, wow, that's intense, and then you fly home, where they're looking at, the threat of diseases that were slayed and destroyed in America, in the Western world centuries ago. They're still dealing with, malaria and other things, and you have to get inoculated for all this stuff when you go.
Right.
And so you see a different slice of life, and I do my best not to let any of that get lost on me.
Is there a particular story or experience where there's some humility that you've gotten personally from one of these trips?
Well, it's continual. I mean, I would love to think it's like, one visit you would kind of be cured of your Western, whatever it is. But it's a constant reminder. Like, I go back there to go get my chops rebusted. Like, you think it's going to stick. And you come back and you have to kind of get Africanized again. It takes about 72 hours to get properly broken in. And then you're like, oh, that's right. And a little bit of it comes back. But continually, your very basic ideas of things are challenged. Where you look at some adult man and you go, well, he's acting very childishly. Like he came up and asked for my bottle of water. I said, well, no, it's mine. I need it. And he won't stop asking for it. Like, pal, grow up. It's mine. But then, is he acting childish or is he thirsty? And he really wants to drink like you would when you're thirsty. And so is the guy just being a pain in the neck? Or is there a bigger question to be asked here? And well, if he's thirsty, shouldn't we be addressing that? And as a human being, doesn't he deserve to have his thirst quenched? And as a compassionate person, aren't I offering half of my water? I mean, there's just all these kind of morality 101 things that you get pulled into on any given moment, minute to minute in these travels. Same thing in parts of India. I mean, I've been to India several times and spent quite a bit of time there, and there's another place where you are really forced to deal with very elemental, basic ground floor ideas that you have about yourself, about people, and how they comport themselves. And for me, at least, this is a very worthwhile book to get the lessons from as often as possible. It's made me, I think, a better person. It's made me more generous, more patient, and way more aware of things. Talk about your head getting pulled out. You think you're aware of things, and then you come back from one of these trips, and you're like, okay, I think I've seen the tip of the iceberg, where to me it was just water before.
That's a great story with, just the things we take for granted, the basic things. There's so many lessons. I can hear it.
Well, when you go take a shower, as some people do, it's the place where they work on their singing. It's the place where they meditate. It's the place where they, kind of stand there for a minute because the water does feel very nice. And then you go to an environment where there's no running water for like 5 days, to where, your shower or your bath is a bucket of muddy water. And that was, parts of southern Sudan, where you look at it and go, well, no. and then you realize that shower that you take is this gratuitous exercise in not exactly waste of water, but you realize your concept of water is quite different than the woman who's walking 4 miles each way to a semi-polluted well to fill up 2 jerry cans of multiple gallons of water that she's going to carry all the way back to use up very quickly on her children and her family for the cooking, some washing, and then the next day, most of her day is the daily journey with the water, where you and I, we go to, any tap, and just turn it on. And I was there with this interesting guy who works at Drop in the Bucket Africa. He's part of the African team. And I went to his home, no running water. And he said, so, Henry, do you have running water in your home? I said, yeah, I do. And he's like, wow, that's cool. And I said, I have, and I had to really sit for a minute and think of how many bathrooms I have in my house. And it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5. And I said, I have 5 bathrooms in my house, all with running water, including the kitchen that has running water. So 6 spots. Oh, 7. There's a bar, which I've never used. So there's 7 access points for running water. Oh, and there's another shower. There's like a sauna thing, which I never have used.
Damn, cuz you got quite a palace over there. That thing's large.
But, it's also just kind of California living.
Sure.
It's Western living.
I get you.
I mean, I'm not living in a shack anymore. But, and he just kind of looked at me like, he said, really? I said, yeah. And if I was in my right mind, I'd give you one. I mean, why should I have all that?
Right.
And, a great deal of it doesn't get used. Honestly, some of this gets used for sheer storage. But you see the difference, and just how we Westerners live our lives. And in that is an incredible amount of waste. And it's the trips going to these countries, in parts of Southeast Asia or wherever else, or walking the slums of Bangladesh, where you realize you watch more food get wasted at a hotel breakfast buffet. You see these tourist groups, they come over and they fill their plates up with all that crap, and they don't eat most of it. It goes into a trash can, gets thrown out, those garbage bags get torn open, and the garbage gets gone through across the street from the hotel in a hot, because this stuff rapidly decomposes, generating heat.
Right.
And I've actually watched kids kind of dive in and out of like slimy, wet mountains of garbage, eating food. And I know full well that some of that food at least had to come from the Westin Hotel across the street from the moldering pile of garbage. I'm living in that hotel for 5 days in mosquito-free, air-conditioned comfort. They are eating rotting French toast that the Dutch traveler, took one bite of or a sniff of and left. And the underpaid, overworked woman pushed it into, some trash can. And now it's being repurposed as, degraded food that's going to, perhaps be ejected rapidly from, by someone 3 hours after eating it because it has in fact gone bad. And so basically it makes you look at the fact that there's enough food in the world to go around. It's just that the food distribution system is classist, racist, nationalistic, and has a great deal of hatred around it. It's like sneering, snarling contempt for humanity around food distribution, water distribution, which will become, issues in this century. But you and I will probably be gone. But by the time the century's over, wars won't be fought over oil. It's going to be about water.
Those are what you talk about with the land and the water, big issues in Hawaii. So a lot of what your material will have a chance to take hold in a lot of people's heads, especially I just think of Maui at least. There's a huge water issue over there. So
there's water issues in Australia. There's water issues in Switzerland.
Right.
I mean, places that you wouldn't, like sturdy Western economies that you wouldn't necessarily think, would have to be drilling into, ancient aquifers to dredge up water like they're dredging up oil. Or, like in the case of Australia, they're using desalination plants, which are, I think, petroleum-run until they can figure out perhaps a solar alternative. And you have people who feel the need to have 5 kids. And so humanity is kind of running headlong towards either an abyss or a drain, or some real important decisions that need to be made, all the while some people that you and I share a country with, vociferously deny science. No such thing as global warming. There's no shortage of anything. If you say there's global warming, obviously you're a communist. Oh, okay. That's great. And so there's... While science and people are trying to make things better, seems to be a willful, just war against common sense and a plausible, sustainable alternative that's going to, keep humans alive this century. It's an interesting time to be alive. It's an interesting time to be concerned.
When I think about your energy, you're known for it. We're hearing it on display as we have this conversation. You said, your agent thought of this idea to you. Is it sort of like they were like, "Wow, here's something that Henry can channel his energy into"? How is it that you decide to channel into each of these things?
Well, I like to do things I can really hurl myself into because I like to be busy about 7 days a week. It's better for my brain. I don't believe really in downtime. It just doesn't serve me very well. If I'm not active, I get very depressed very quickly. So I'd rather be engaged.
Have you mellowed at all?
I'm sorry?
Have you mellowed at all as you've gotten older?
No. I mean, I live better than I used to as far as day to day, and then I really don't worry about paying the rent or eating. I think I got it covered. But the travel and the awareness that I am able to engage in now makes me very angry civically, in that you see stuff that's just not right. You see good people that are they shouldn't be getting treated like that. And so to not be angry about it, to not want to turn that around, you're now officially part of the problem. You can't count yourself as part of the solution if you're going to be cool with that. Or, I'm just trying to get along. Well, that's really not good enough anymore. I think one needs to kind of work harder to make it better.
What about the musical passion inside of you?
I listen to more music than ever.
What are you listening to these days?
I've been listening to a lot of really tripped out Scandinavian psychedelic music. The names of the bands, quite honestly, I cannot pronounce them. Like Toto Tantu. Okay. That's one of them. Uton, U-T-O-N, I can pronounce that. That's basically one guy, and he collaborates with a lot of other people. I was in Finland earlier this year, and I was at this interesting record store, and I always go to the weird bin, and I'm going through the odd bin, and I pull out all these LPs that look really interesting, and I'm not familiar with any of these names. I can't even pronounce them. So I dragged them all over to the nice man behind the counter, and I said, can you play some of this for me? And, the guy, that's what he does for a living. He makes sales. He said, yeah. And he put them on, give me a little minute of this one, a minute of that one. I said, okay, put those in the stack. I'll buy all of them. And I said, if I liked what you just played me, what else would I like? And he goes over and he drags out like another chunk of LPs, and he puts them on. I go, yeah, I'll take all of those as well. And I was very aware of interesting, noisy, droney music coming out of Denmark, bands like Family Underground and Sarah's Charity and Pig Iron. But I did not know there was this crazy Finnish scene. And so this guy kind of hipped me to that, and I've been doing kind of a relentless, dig into Scando, noise, drone, psychedelic, psych folk music, and that's been taking up a lot of my listening lately. I've been listening to a kind of an established band from Italy. Well, they're small, but they're prolific. They're called My Cat is an Alien, and they're two brothers, and they make, like a record a week. And so those records are incredible. So I've been doing a My Cat is an Alien record almost every night I've been home. I did one last night that Thurston Moore put out on his Ecstatic Peace label years ago. I think it's called Scenes from an Electric City. I think that's what it's called. Just incredible. So I've been listening to a lot of that. I listen to a lot of releases on the American Tapes label, which is a Midwestern American noise label, headed up by John Olson of the band Wolf Eyes. And he puts out like a record a week, and I'm kind of on his mailing list, so I buy one of everything. Kind of a lot of far-out music. Not a whole lot of kind of more conventional music, if you will. The new High on Fire record, that's a very kind of crushing metal band. I pay very close attention to anything they're doing. Their new album is incredible, as all their albums are. The new Dinosaur Jr. album, it won't be out till September, but I'm kind of, lucky, and I'm on the inside track, so they sent me that, and it's like one of my favorite records right now. So I buy and listen to a lot of music. It takes quite a bit of time to keep up with it. When I'm off the road, like I am now, I kind of make a rule of at 9:30 or so, I'm in front of the speakers with the assignment of like 2 to 4 LPs a night, just to get these listened to at least once in this lifetime. If I sit and I multitask, I'll do a writing project as I sit in front of the speakers. So I'm writing, I'm working gainfully, and I am listening.
We got to get you to mediate something with the Sabbath. What are we going to do with this whole thing? I mean, we're going to get... I don't know if you saw this, but last year on 11/11/11... I saw it, brother.
Okay, well, as you know, I was there for that, and I was kind of moderating the press people and keeping the band in line. I say that gently. I mean, they're wonderful guys. And, on that day, I talked to the band, Black Sabbath we're talking about, and everyone is go, go, go. And what I got from the band and from Rick Rubin, that songs had already been started, and the band was completely excited. I mean, they thought it was, great stuff. Rick, who I trust, Rick said the material's awesome. And quite honestly, if Sabbath was going to get together, there's no one else I'd want to have produce them. Because as far as one guy who could really get it on tape, it's Rick.
You got it.
He understands and
you got it, brother.
Understands why it has to be how it is. Anyway, weeks after this wonderful time, I get this, some guy writes me like, dude, you better... A, Tony Iommi is sick with lymphoma. B, Bill Ward is stepping away from this. And so if it is a matter of it being money, like if Bill Ward can't sign the contract because the money's not right, I would hope that these rational adults would kind of get over the money in that. And I have no privy to any knowledge. I really don't. I'm just assuming that if he can't sign a contract, well, what else does a contract involve? And so if it's money, there is so much money to go around with that band at this point. None of these guys are young. They really need to, if there's any hatchets, they need to be buried. And the world needs a Black Sabbath album produced by Rick Rubin with all 4 of those guys on it. And we need that this year. And if it's only money, these guys got to grow up. And if it's coming from Sharon, who's, in my mind, a very wonderful person, but, she's not to be messed with. And she's tough. And so if this is coming from Sharon, I wish she would kind of take her Vulcan death grip off of this for a moment. Because there's not $1 in the world circulation that she hasn't touched once in her life. I mean, these are very wealthy people, especially Sharon and her husband. I mean, they're going to be fine. I don't think any meal is going to escape them. And so if it's only money, we fans demand that they just cut the crap. If it's something else, these are 4 men who've been friends for over 50 years. So relationship must survive whatever this is. And so if it's going to be three of the four, if it's going to be Geezer and Ozzy and, Vinny Appice, well, damn, man. I mean, come on.
It's not even Vinny. They just hired some cat, brother. Well,
it was going to be like Josh Freese or the guy from Rage Against, the fellow from Faith No More.
Yeah, it's not Mike Borden or anybody. It's not
Mike, Mike gets it. I mean, he's a solid guy and nicest guy you want to meet. And the guy, he can drum a little. He's pretty great. There's great drummers out there. Stephen Perkins would be a choice who could really swing with Geezer.
Gotta have Bill, though.
Is kind of everyone's go-to. I mean, there's people out there, but Bill Ward is one of the greatest drummers in the history of drumming. I mean, he is my favorite rock drummer. So I'm kind of biased, but it's more than that. It's the combination of he and Geezer together. No one gets more out of Bill Ward than Geezer Butler. No one accompanies Geezer Butler better than Bill Ward. I mean, that is one of the most powerful things ever in the musical universe are those two guys playing together. I mean, it's true. It's astonishing how much they do when they're together. It's really unique as well.
It is epic. Well, that's why
it's like the Led Zeppelin's rhythm section. It's kind of made, or the Who's rhythm section. It's really a sum of the parts thing. Where together it's perfect. Apart, it's great, but it ain't the thing. It's not what you want. And Sabbath, arguably, is the last supergroup intact.
The thing about the Sabbath is what you're talking about is it's a legacy that you don't want to have diluted.
Right. And so if it's not going to be the four of them, do the right thing and don't record. I mean, truly. I mean, I'd rather not have to buy the record and go, really? Then I'd rather have no choice than that be my choice.
I dig talking music with you. That's the thing. That's why I couldn't let it go. Talking a little bit of rock and roll with the man who used to just dive into the crowd.
I did.
So, when's the last time you did that? When's the last time you hurled yourself at an audience?
Oh, like 100 years ago. I mean, at a Black Flag audience, it's probably the way to end up in the hospital. I mean, crowds can be very turbulent. I mean, they'll pull your arm off to get a closer look. And so I learned to be very careful with audiences in that they're full of nice people, but once they're together and the music gets going, they might do things that they're not aware of with Herculean strength that they might regret their deeds later. And you don't want to be the guy saying, yeah, you took my eye out. And the guy would say, well, I'm very sorry, and I'm sure he is, but you're still missing an eye. So years ago, after getting handfuls of my hair torn out of my head, which is an incredibly bad feeling, being knocked out cold and having, been stitched up many a time from the wrath of an audience, I learned to dig them, but keep them at a safe distance.
Yeah, it's all on you. A lot of it's on YouTube. Some incredible video of you. Your blood gets moving when you watch it.
Yeah, I mean, any vocalist from those days will tell you, there's some rough nights up there on deck.
You were the man. You still are the man. I give you a high five, and I hope you had fun talking today.
Oh, I absolutely did, man.
I'll see you soon. You travel safe, and if you can get here a couple of days early, I'll have you by the studio. I'll take very good care of you.
Yeah, I'll see if I can pull that off.
It would be really nice.
Definitely. I'll look into it for sure.
You travel safe, Brother Henry. Thank you again. I appreciate all the time with you. It's a lot of fun talking.
Thank you, man. You made it very easy. I appreciate it. See you.
Aloha.